for you to be able to drive home your lesson. You might have a good plan, you might have a good lesson to deliver, but the problem is that you cannot manage your class very well. You can't manage your class very well, and it serves as a distraction to you delivering your lesson. So we are going to look at classroom management, and then under this classroom management, we are also going to look at Montessori and evaluation. This aspect means how to evaluate in a Montessori way. As educators, we will get to know that. Now, the introduction talked about that this topic will help to address the deficiency in effective classroom management. I'm going to take time and explain that. Now, we all are aware of the general theme of this seminar, that we as educators, we have to eradicate the deficiency that is always popping up when it comes to our learners. So, like the director told us when he was introducing the general theme of this seminar, that it is in two ways. Most educators are mediocre, and most learners are deficient in the way they learn. So in order to balance those two aspects, first we are now addressing the educators, the teachers. How best can you manage your class so as to have a good result-oriented input? Also, this topic is going to highlight the various strategies used for effective classroom management. Most of us seated here, we already know so much about classroom management. But these are just suggestions, because over time some people have used this and it worked. Something someone has used and it worked. There is no crime in another person trying it, because it is over time giving out a good result. It will also let us learn what Montessori is all about and how to evaluate our learners or students in using Montessori method. Like we were told some days back, that the assessment, you are given one hour, and you are supposed to, like the director told us the first day, to assess your learners on the spot. We will get to know that type of method of assessing the learners on the spot, how to effectively use it, and what it is all about. Now let's start with classroom management. For a teacher to be a veteran in teaching, he or she must possess the 21st century skills on how to effectively manage his or her class for learners or students to learn under a conducive environment. The lesson that you are so much eager to deliver, in quotes, if the environment is not conducive enough, it doesn't go down well with the lesson. Irrespective of your concrete or non-concrete instructional aids, if you like, do everything you want to do. But if your class is not conducive enough for your learners, there is a big problem. And someone will be asking as you are seated, how can my class be conducive? That is what we want to look into. the strategies of how you maneuver your class will make your class what? Comfortable. That very particular child that is fond of staying away from class, staying away from school, will find it interesting that even if the parent tells him or her to not to go to school, come to school today, the child will cry and say no, because what is displaying on the child's mind is the interesting aspect of the class, how conducive the class is. To manage your class effectively shows you are in control. Like yesterday, a lot of us that came out to present, we were not in control. We over exaggerated the situation. You wanted to like crack jokes. You wanted to like bring in some little things to spice up your class. But you did it over that the class became rowdy. At that point in time, can you tell yourself that you were in control? You were no longer in control. You will be screaming, hey, stop making noise, hey, but you didn't need to go that route, because at that point, you are no longer in control of your class. You've allowed your learners to dictate that class for you at that time. So when managing your class, you know the kind of jokes you want to pop up just to spice them, not to bore them. You should be in control of that very particular thing. Don't allow them take it to the extreme. Don't allow it go to the extreme. Have where it should be limited so as to be in control. Because children are very funny. Learners can be very funny. That you give them one step, they will take 2 steps. Then the following classroom management skills are expected. Following classroom. Establish a positive relationship with your learners or students. Establish a positive relationship. Positive, it is clearly stated. Positive relationship. Now, if you don't have a teacher and learner relationship, there is no way you can teach, and the teaching effectively goes inside the child. Your learners will absolutely not understand what you are teaching them, except you have that relationship, positive relationship of the teacher and the learner. I bring up what I said yesterday. There's a child that I'm now so close, we are now friends. If that child was always fond of, or is always fond of, doing like this. And as I'm talking to you, though it's a gradual process, the child now is conscious of what she has been doing. And each time the child sees me while doing that thing unconsciously, she will try to bring down the hand. Before, I was always harsh on her. Each time I see her doing like this, I will tell her, my friend, remove your hand from your mouth. At your age, I was that. Until I started developing that positive relationship, I became very close as a friend. I was not seeing myself here as a big person. I brought down myself. I became friend with the child. And I now started telling the child, it's not good to do this. You are no longer a kid. You are no longer a child. You are growing there. And she understood it. And even though she is still doing it, but not at that rate. At a point, I was telling her, stop doing that thing. Don't look at me. Who cares? If you like, when you finish screaming, you will go your way. But now, Emie seeing me from afar, she will just, because she also wants to maintain that positive relationship. while teaching in the class, you should develop a positive relationship. That means don't in any way assume or think this child is not good. Every child that is in your class, every learner in your class, they are perfectly okay. When you have that positive mindset, try to relate with all of them positively and in a friendly way. Don't have specialties. Don't have people that you prefer so much. You send them so much to help you do some things in the class, and the rest, and your own reason is that because these ones are smart, so the other ones are not smart, they are dull. It's wrong. It can divide your class. It can make you not to be in control of that class. Remember what we said yesterday, that one weak child in your class is why you are the educator of that class, not the remaining 10 that are flying. That one child. So discover this and then create that positive relationship. And then experts also, do not leave relationship to chance if you want to get the most out of classroom management. I've talked about that. Don't take any child for granted because they are children. No. Experts acknowledge that teachers-student relationship is the cornerstone of effective classroom management, because classroom management has the highest or largest effect on learners or student achievement. So establishing positive relationship that promotes a sense of school belonging. Now, if you want to look at it plus or minus, the highest input, what contributes to the achievement for that child to be excellent, for your learners to be at their maximum level, what contributes majorly to it is your teacher and learner relationship, the positive relationship. It makes that your learners to be at ease. It makes them to feel sense of belonging, that they belong there, that is their own. They are no longer strangers. They might not open up to tell you that they feel neglected or they feel strange, but they are reading it out in their mind. The next one is encourage questions. You are managing your class, encourage questions. An educator that has students' best interest at heart should not be so focused on teaching that you allow no room for questions. Your own is to teach. Your own is to speak those grammar. Your own is to dish out instruction. And then you don't care for the feedback like the questions. Fine, someone will be asking, what if the child wants to ask? Most of us, even as adults here, we were so eager to ask questions right from the first day, isn't it? But we were regulated till the last day. So there is no crime in you telling that child or that learner that the time for question will come. Encourage them to ask questions, because by asking questions, you yourself, you will discover another way of putting some things clearer to them. When they ask questions, a good educator will now listen to the question and have another method or another way of explaining that very particular lesson. You as a teacher should invest more in getting the learners or students interested and to be engaged in the subject matter. You are teaching basic science and technology, and you are well equipped. You have to encourage them to ask. Most of them will ask you questions that are not related to the lesson. And if you don't control yourself, most educators, they feel angry at that time. They are my friend, sit down. This is not the kind of question you should ask. Uh, but even when the question is not the type of question you expect or should be asked, you should have a way of not bringing them down. Don't dampen their morale. Because by the time you need those questions related to the lesson, they might have gone into their shell and refused to come out. Because you've touched something in them that makes them feel you don't care, you are not interested. So we are looking at you having that interest in your mind and then trying to help them. Those ones that are very fond of, after every lesson, you say any question, they will give you correct answer. No question. Do you understand? Yes, madam. Please, don't stop there. Don't stop there. You can start asking them questions in order for them to ask you back. Because by the time they chorus it and say, we all understand, there is no question. And you now say, okay, I am going to ask you individually question. A child will like, okay, let me look for question and do what? And ask. And if we do this consistently, you will discover that you will inculcate in your learners the ability of always asking good questions and learning from those questions. A useful rule of thumb is that you do not explain ideas or facts uninterpreted for more than 5 minutes at a time without giving room for questions. Now, there is no how you as an educator will stand out here to educate your learners, that your learners will not have questions in every 5 minutes of your time of explaining that lesson. They will have questions. So you have to be aware of this fact. And then in order to regulate it and manage it, tell them the time they will ask. There is no crime like the instruction was given here that if you have any question, in order not to forget, you do what? You put it there down. You can as well encourage them. Because if they start asking those random questions now, it's killing your time. Your time is going. So when it comes to the normal time, you can entertain. So you can encourage them to put it there down. They can just look for somewhere and put it down. And then when the time comes, you encourage them to ask. Some students may get bored and lose concentration. Instead, set a good example by asking questions. I've already explained that. A lot of our lessons, the method we present our lesson, so boring, so boring that your learners might get so bored. So in such situation, what do? Don't forget we are looking at the management of your class. To manage your class is not only when you are in the class. Everybody knows that madam is in the class and they don't have to make noise. It goes beyond that. When you are in the class, everybody behaves. What happens when you step out of that class? Because you don't have any eye behind. So, the effectiveness of a teacher to be said to manage his or her class well is not when you are in the class, because your influence is there. It is when you are not in the class that is where we will know how coordinated that class can be. Okay, so let's continue. Then praise your learners. Praise your learners. Never underestimate the benefits of praises. It is one of the tools that can be a powerful motivation for learners or students. Now, let me take us to something very interesting. When I was a child, I was initiated into the Ekpe Society. And as a child, then every December, I will also join them, and I will also, because as a member, you discover that each time the person that is wearing the ekwe itself, there is something they call nsebidi, where this ekpe will now meet with this other ekpe, a different one. They can't pass like that. They must put up those things. The person that outclassed the other one will now show the ego and pass. They can collect some items from these ones and take it for free. But that ekpe cannot act or do anything except the person that is using that thing that is called takro is able to ginger the spirit of that ekpe out, and that is the praises. No wonder even the Bible, God says that prayers only moved what? Mountains. You pray and kabash, mountains are falling. But if you want to move God to be moved on your own behalf, what do? You praise Him. You see the motivation of praises. That you praise somebody and you completely change the mindset of that person. That person can make promises that after that time say, was I the one that made this promise? Someone can give you an open check for you to fill the amount. Now, it appears also to our learners. Let us not underestimate this point. Don't be fond of talking down your learners. Don't be fond of doing that. Even in the midst of the fact that they are not leveling up to your expectations, praises can bring them, can take them to that level by telling them, like what our head of school used to do, Mrs. Chidima's children. These days, all of them will want to come and good morning, madam, so as to receive what? Staff. That is praises we are talking. You can use different methods, you can do everything. Now, research has shown that praise is more effective than tangible reward. You showering praises on your learners can be more effective than you buying them something. That is the tangible reward. You say, okay, at the end of this term, I want to buy them pencil, want to buy them calculator, buy them this. For you, praising them is far more better than those tangible rewards. Because this one now will help a child will just receive it and say, my madam gave me this one, my son gave me this one, this and that ends the story. But your constant praise, you people are the best. I am proud of all of you. In fact, without you people, I don't know how this class would have looked like. You make them understand that they are the very best. In fact, you couldn't have asked for any other set of learners than them. That will motivate them. That will spur them up. And let me also say, like I said yesterday, a praise for one learner is a praise for all the class. Because everybody will be looking forward to also positioning themselves so that you also praise them. If I am praising Mr. Mesembe for doing something well, in a typical setup psychologically, Miss Akon will want to also be praised. It's not like being jealous, but if you call it jealousy, I will put it this way, a positive one. Because it's good. So the class automatically will change to that perception that since they are praising this person, I can also do something so that they praise me. The entire class will now give you what you want. And then we also say, while praise can be a great tool for motivation and achievement, teachers must use it effectively. Also, teachers need to adhere strictly to the following while giving praises to the learners. This is another crux of the matter. While, as an educator, while you are busy praising, you have to take note of this following. Focus on effort and not only on achievement. A child that is trying, we have a position where we say, greatly improved. The child is improving. The child have not achieved anything, isn't it? But the effort is what you are appreciating. For those ones that have achieved, they've already arrived there and you've seen that they have made it. But what happened to those ones that have made a remarkable effort? A child that took, in a situation where we apportion positions, a child that took 20 20 as a position and the child is taking 18, hasn't that child improved? A child that scores your subject during test, maybe 5, 3, 4, and that same child, the next time you come for assessment, is stepping up to 6, 7, because the child did not score 10 all over 10. That is the achievement. You don't notice it. But we should also focus on the effort. The effort is the child is making progress. The child is trying. That is the effort. Be specific both in terms of the student and his or her accomplishment. Don't exaggerate. Don't assume, oh, because it is this child, I know what he or she is capable of doing. So without even looking at it, you have already given your approval. Oh, because it is this child, I know him or her to be that you will ask him or her to explain a definition. He or she will give you the same way you give, without you even taking time to go through it. He said, because it is this one, I don't have a problem. We should be very careful with that because we might be doing the wrong thing. Praise should be clear. You don't praise because that person is the all in all. By tomorrow, another person might come out to outclass that person in terms of your praises. So how do you manage the situation? So that means you have to be clear. Why are you praising Miss Akon? Why am I mentioning Miss Akon's name for these praises? I should state it clear. Miss Akon for the whole of today has done her work very well. Everything concerning her has been perfect for today. And so she deserves the praise. And another learner that is listening will know you are not just fond of Miss Akon because you like her by mentioning her name for praising, that she has done something that worth you praising her. That means if another person also do something that worth you praising, you will also praise the person. So be clear and at the same time creative and varied. The same way you praise this person might not be the same way you praise this person. You must be varied in your praises. Provide students or pupils with information about their performance. Oh, Miss Akon, you did well. You scored 80 in this. That child is motivated that you've already exposed the score. Oh, some of them will always come to some of us and say, please sir, what was my score? How many did I score in this? They want to know, and most of us will keep it away from them. It doesn't motivate them. If a child didn't do well, find a way of telling the child, well, you tried, but your performance this very time under this particular subject matter did not go down well. So next time you are going to see this or do this, make sure you double your effort. It serves as motivation. I did not do well, I should do well. Or I did well, I should sustain the tempo. Organized group projects. This is fast becoming absolute in our method of managing our classes. There is no crime in you giving your class a group project, a tangible group project. Learners or people love working together. You will achieve the togetherness in them, that they will bond together. That is one of the things this will achieve, the togetherness, because they always love being together, being fond of themselves. Groups, therefore, for effective classroom management, there should be lessons, tasks that are designed to bring the pupils together. Find time in your preparation of your lesson to see how you can bring the entire class together to work for a common task. This time around, not individual. You give them a class project, a homework project that they have to come together. Their resources will come together. Their ideas will come together. Their minds will come together. And in that process, they become bonded. They get to know each other. Most of them only get to know themselves only here in school, in class. When they step out of here, that ends the story. But it's not supposed to be so. So you help in the group project, and you also help their togetherness and their reasoning together. Engage in a two-way feedback. Engage in a two-way feedback. Giving feedback is an essential part of effective classroom management. What is the feedback? You having listening to them. Like as I'm talking, I am the only person talking. I'm the one giving out. It's coming one way. But a time will come where you also will do what? Talk by asking questions also. If the organizers of this seminar did not include on the timetable question session, will it make sense? And you want to ask, and they are telling you, no, we don't have time, we don't have time, we don't have time. We don't. They say the person that wears the shoe knows where it pinches. You can't know if the shoe I am putting on is comfortable on me until you also put your leg inside to know if the jumping around the shoe is okay. I might be pretending. So if you are not in my shoe, you will not know what I'm passing through. So we are no spirit to know what is going on in every child's mind until we establish this two-way feedback of also listening to them. It helps your pupils or students to understand the subject matter. Now, narrowing it down to your lesson, you must get that feedback by way of questioning, by way of telling them to also express themselves. The way they understand that lesson may be different from the way you presented it to them. You have your method. They may assimilate it in their own little way and allow them to also feed you. You might learn something from them. You might learn something to expand your capacity. If done correctly, it can improve the pupils' or students' performance, self-awareness, enthusiasm for learning. You will see that a child will always be eager to learn, having the desire, and then it creates that awareness. It makes the child to be aware of so much, and the performance will be what they will be expecting. The performance will be greatly improved. Engaging in two-way feedback, the following strategies of classroom management are encouraged. We are encouraging you that the following can be very, very useful. Model idea behavior. Model ideal behavior, sorry. Model ideal behavior. When we say to model, you see upstate there that teachers are role model. Now when we say model ideal behavior, you have seen a behavior in your learner that is worthy to take note of. If there is no crime in you modeling it for other learners to also take cue of. For instance, if someone is speaking well in your class, a child stands up and speaks good and correct English, what stops you in referring to that child if you want to make corrections about speaking well? I hope you now understand. Let your pupils or students help in establishing rules or guidelines for the class. I like what Mrs. Sarah did last term in our class. While I was preparing this, I had her in mind. When she was about to put down the rules of the class, I thought she was going to sit down and write it out for me to go help her put it on the cardboard. But she called her learners and asked each and every one of them to make suggestions. Meaning you can use that and tell them, you people make this suggestion, is now binding on you. You see the logic? All of them, nobody should distract the class while lesson is going on. Write it down. Nobody should walk out of the class or take permission to go out while this is going on. Nobody should eat when it is not time for break and all those things now form the class rules. So if any of them violate those rules, you have every power to now call the child and say, you made this, you contributed to it. And as a matter of fact, something you make contribution to, you will be careful not to be the one to scatter it. You will be very careful. Document rules. Rules in your class while managing your class should not just be anyhow rule wherever you deem fit. It should be properly documented that in this class, no two persons can go out at the same time. It should sink into their subconsciousness that in this class, Mr. Asukwo doesn't permit two learners leaving the class at the same time. Mr. Asukwo doesn't permit two learners or a learner doing this during this time. You document your rule. Avoid punishing the entire class. Already we know that in a civilized society, you punish a child and you go for it, you pay for it, they sue you because that means abuse. Not to talk of to one person did something and the class is suffering for it. When it comes to punishment, we should be very careful how we punish. But here in Gladys International School, we were told that you can only take the child to either the school director, the head of school, or the admission officer for correction purpose. They know best how to correct those children. Because I might want to bring my maritime experience and it will not go down well. I might not use corrector. I might want to use other physical things on them. The way they use it on me, it might not go down well. I might want to do it personally, taking it personal. Like we always say, you are taking me personal. And it might not go down well. So don't apply it to an individual learner. Don't apply it to the class as a whole. Encourage initiative. Encourage new ideas. When I was given the head of a press club, I know of a particular child in a particular class. When we are done meeting and I've told them the interesting things, what we are going to be doing, that child will always sneak and come to me and now say, Mr. Asukwo, I have an idea. can we be doing this in this club? He is always fond of doing that. That is initiative. And most of the things he come up to tell me, I will confess, I implement them in a way that he does not even know that that is what I am, what he suggested. But I should not have that attitude of no, that is not how to do it because I am the teacher, I'm the boss. I don't need any other solution. Use more of non-verbal communication, non-verbal cues. As teachers, I hope we are okay with verbal and non-verbal cues. I can't be in a class and all of a sudden the class becomes noisy. I will just lift my eyes and look at the child that is making that noise. That settles the whole thing. That is non-verbal communication. I don't need to shout. I don't need to stand up. I don't need to carry anything. I just lift my eyes and look at you. Or you people are doing something that will be maybe in a free period or leisure time. I will just everything. You can bring up your own, and then if you do it consistently, because most of the times by talking your learners might feel you are diminishing them, you are underrating them, you are talking down on them. But if you use more of these non-verbal cues, non-verbal communication, it goes a long way. Offer praises, we've already talked about that one. Hold parties. This very school year, I'm not trying to let my own cat out of the bag, but I'm planning so much. I'm not saying I'm planning on the school budget. I'm planning on my personal budget to carry my learners to go out for picnic with my learners outside this school environment. We sit down, we enjoy ourselves because there is a saying that says all work and no play make what? Jack a dull boy. Because by so doing, you come back, the bonding is there, the intimacy is there, the respect you come up, that you give instruction, a child knows what is at stake if he or she disobeys you. From where I am coming from, my former place, though we are getting to that level, you have a TV hung on the class. There are some lessons you don't stand out and talk and teach as a teacher. You project it on the TV. And you know what it means for children to be deprived of watching TV. So if a child is not behaving the way I want that child to behave, the only thing is that when it is time for TV, while everybody is facing this way, you are facing the other way. Or you go to a particular place and sit comfortably, but you are not part of the something. You know how it will go. It will not go down well with children. So there are various ways. Make them feel okay. Hold parties. It might not be that party of a size or so. Things needed in a classroom for effective management. Things needed in a classroom. Appoint class prefects in various areas to help make the work of managing the class very easy. I have a class prefect that is in charge of making sure that as soon as I step out of the class remains the way it is. I don't need to tell him or her as I'm leaving the class, Mr. Akon, give me names of my noise makers. I don't need. Immediately I leave the class, the child will just bring out a sheet of paper and will tell everybody in the class, Mr. Asuko is not in class. I am putting down names of noise makers. That's empty. As soon as I come back, the person that disturbed the class may be feeling the name will appear, the number of times will be start, and it's left for me to now take my decision. But doing it per time, you come back and still meet your class impact. I have a prefect that is in charge of sharing of books. Each time we want to, like, for instance, we have a copy where each child has their space, their books. I have a class prefect that Nobody will just stand up rowdily and to go scramble and remove their book. Everybody is seated, and then you just have the exercise book meant for that subject passed to you or shared to you by. I also have that in a situation whereby it is time to eat lunch or break time, you sit down majestically and knowing very well where your items are in a separate copy. This person will just go bring out your everything and you sit down, you see the orderliness of the class. I have a class prefect that based on the timetable you go and call the subject teachers. You don't have to ask them, you go call them. The person knows when once this time finishes, the next subject is supposed to come, and he or she will just take permission and go to court. So this will help you as a teacher to also manage your class. You will not do everything, and at the end of the whole day, when you are asked to come do something else, you say, I'm already tired. No. Have a class slogan. This is very, very important. It shows identity. Have a class slogan. This will encourage greetings in your class and will give your class an identity and a sense of belonging. For instance, mine is a class of positive world changers. We put it this way: class greet, good morning teacher, or you mention the name of the person. We are glad to see you. Welcome to a class of positive world changers. How are you today? And you respond. We know that you, anywhere you are, when you hear that slogan, you know that is Mr. Super's class. So each and every one of us, from the very beginning class to the last class here in this room, as you are living now, please develop your class slogan. As they are coming, I did not discourage myself. I came last term, and by this time 2 terms had already gone. I was supposed to be discouraged by thinking, no, let me just wait now. They are already used to this one. But I was able to change the narrative to suit my own way because I wanted to be in charge of my class. That is another way. Now, have your class exit permission card. Every child leaving your class should always and always go out with the exit pass. This will help to control movement and help you to be accountable. Let me tell you that the days are so bad. You never can tell. A child leaves your class without your permission of that exit pass, and then the child leaves without that card. What happens if something dangerous happens to the child? And they will say you are responsible for it. So that if that child left without that card, we will now say it is a rule in our class that nobody leaves the class without this card. So did you go out with this card? He or she will say no, you exonerated yourself. Because it is a rule. Going out now means the person took permission. Then we can know how to settle that. Things needed in the classroom still under that. Decorate your class with different types of instructional materials and make it attractive so that your pupils or students will be proud to be in class always. Your class should not be boring in terms of the pictures on the wall. It might not necessarily mean that you will use all of them as instructional materials. For instance, if in this class now, I'm to put up some things in this class, let it be some educational chat. It might help in your lesson. It might not come in your lesson, but it sends a message. It sends a good educational message to them, not the one that will just give something different. And play around with colors. Play around with colors. Children don't like too much of white. They don't like too much of white. Play around with colors. It attracts the child. If you will see a child that will say, no, I want to be in that class. I want to be in that class. Every now and then we'll run and come and look at something that interests him or her because of the variety. Lastly, you can as well manage your class effectively through the way you position your pupils or students. Please take note. Yesterday I was rushing it. I was rushing over it. But today I am going to take time to talk about this. Manage your class effectively through the way you position your students or learners. That is their sitting position is what I'm talking about. Their sitting position. Now, study have shown, you can go and do your own research, but study have shown that the three classes of learners that we have learners that are visual learners, like I said yesterday. They are very good when it comes to visual. That means you as a teacher must be careful what you write on the board. Don't make mistakes in your spelling. Because the same way they are seeing there is what attracts them with their eyes. They are called visual learners. They don't need to hear you. All they need to do is just give them something up, and then whether on a chart, on a wall, on the board, and let them see that thing clearly, then they are good to go. And we have the another set that are called auditory learners. Immediately they hear you, and they hear you very well. It sinks into them. So that means in that aspect you have to be careful what you say, how you pronounce things. Because the way you say them, those ones that are auditory, they grab it very fast, and there is nothing you can do to change it as long as they've gotten it. They might be doing something else, but so long as they are hearing you loud and clear, they are good to go. And then the last set are called the kinesthetic ones. Those ones that are always super hyper. They are very, very active. You see a child in your class that child can't be tired for Africa. The child will always want to go use the restroom 10 times. The child will always be so energetic. Those ones, you give them any kind of activity, they will finish and come back. Madam, I am done. You send them again. They are not tired of it. There are some that a mere giving them one set of class activities, they can stay there till the school is over. But this one, they are done so that they will go back and play or distract, pinch a child. Say, see this one. They will drag a child's hair. Even when you gave them something, they are done. You ask, have you finished what I gave you to do? He say, yes, ma'am, I'm done. So as to go back to, those ones are hyperactive. They are kinesthetic learners. Now, the positioning of them also will help you to manage your class. I will advise those ones that are hyperactive, try to bring them closer to yourself. Try to bring them closer to yourself. But in a normal setup, the study shows that they should be at the end of the class. But while they are at the end of the class because of their troubles, and while you are keeping them at the end of the class, make sure that your eye is on them. You don't necessarily need to bring them closer to your table, to surround your table, no. But keep an eye on them. And then the ones that are visual, they should always stay in front of the class because they need a clearer view of everything that is happening. If you keep the ones that are visual behind, you've succeeded in limiting their learning ability because they will stay there and struggle find it difficult to see what is happening in front of the class. So don't position your learners based on favoritism, or parents will come and tell you, where is my child sitting? Is wrong. Where is my child sitting? Make sure. So if every parent says my child should sit in front, who are those ones that will sit behind? So you are in charge of the class. It's not the parent that is in charge of the class. They are not to help you manage your class, because they are not in the class. It is you. So you position them. It's not because you like this one to stay in front. Look at it. There are some children from experience. Each time I see a child that is supposed to write classroom this way, and the child will omit R or omit one O, don't just think that child is mumu. You cannot see a simple something and write what is written on the board. Don't assume that. That child might be suffering from a deficiency, health-wise. I watched a video, I carefully watched a video from the YouTube about an autistic child, that the letters are dancing. The letters are dancing. And I told myself, no wonder. And that research proves that that is the reason why some children, they don't do it purposely. By omitting you, a child wants to write student and is not writing the U. But while spelling it, the child is spelling with the U. But while writing it, the U has gone to Upper and Market. That child in that process, looking at writing, the letters are appearing and disappearing, appearing, dancing like that. That was the video I saw. That child will look. I say, Sean, write what is on the board. He will use his hand and clean his eyes and look. And the letter will pop up and goes back again. That time the data is going back. That is when he wanted to write and he discovered that there was no letter there and he skipped to the next one. That is how they skip the thing. And we will keep getting ourselves angry. You, this boy, what is wrong with you? A simple something to see on the board and write, you cannot. Look at you. You don't know that something is terribly going on wrong with the child. So, as an educator, you must be aware of this. You can as well help. There are so many children that have health-related issues that can become a problem for you, because it will look as if your little effort is not paying off, not knowing that that child is having health deficiency. Now, that is what makes you a good educator, that you are not only after teaching, you also discover some problems and help solve those problems. Now let's look at Montessori and evaluation. I want to look at that's the final aspect of this. First, what is Montessori? Montessori is a system of education for young children that seek to develop natural interests and activities rather than use formal teaching method. We all know what formal teaching method is, right? I understand we know. Formal teaching method, passing through the normal procedures while teaching. That is formal. But in Montessori, they don't do it the formal way. Formal here is the teacher that introduces the formal, right? But in Montessori, it is the children that you decide the type of method you use in teaching them. You see how unique it is. A child in your class is determining how best you can teach him. If that child is not comfortable with sitting on the desk, the child says, I'm comfortable lying on the floor. You bring yourself down to the floor in order to do what? Teach the child. That is the method of the child. I know of a child where I'm coming from, my former place, that the child, before he sits down to write, the child was in the early years, he will run around the whole place and the teacher will be running after him. After they are done running, they will come and sit down, the child will write. If you want him to read at that early stage, the child will just, and this child, Odudu have been, he doesn't walk with his legs balanced, he walks on the toes. So all this is always like this. So the running aspect is running like this. The teachers will just run after him like that. They will run after him. When he is done running and gets tired, they will now hold the teacher's hand. He say, let's go. And immediately you sit him down, give him everything, he will just answer you. Exams the same way. When it comes to exam, the teachers will prepare their mind that Odudu will run around the class, go outside, come back. After all said and done, Odudu will sit down. You start asking Odudu the exam question, Odudu will start giving you the answer. Now that is the method of how he is learning. That is the Montessori way. It's not the one you tell the child, hey, sit down here, let's go. If you do that to Odudu, the next 2 years you will not be able to do anything with Odudu. Odudu will just look at you and just be there. The next thing, Odudu will not even run around the class, he will go outside. That is that. That is the method. Rather use formal teaching method. Montessori is a method of education that is based on self-directed activities. It is not you, the teacher, that is directing this activity. It is the learners that are directing the way their activity should look like. Hands-on learning, they busy their hands. They busy their hands on learning. And the collaborative play. In Montessori, classroom children make creative choices in their learning, while the teacher only guides the process. As a Montessori teacher or educator, all you have to do is just to be a guide. If they are not doing it properly, you bring them to order and still let them follow. But everything is centered on the child. Okay. Montessori, let's move to the next one. Still telling us more about Montessori, because why are we looking at this Montessori? Let me bring our mind back to why this is important, why we are saying this in this seminar. When you are being told by the school authority that you are going to be assessing your learners on the spot, that method is Montessori method. So you have to be aware of what you are to do as a teacher in terms of assessing them. In a Montessori method of education, learning assessment is based on the observation of the whole child as they work and engage in activity each day. Can you now see it now? It's not a time you keep. On Friday, you come up, we are going to have tests. No. A particular week, we have tests. No. Now, the assessment is based on, the holistic assessment is based on the child. And it takes place each day. That means, if a child comes today and is behaving well, you can assess that child. That no wonder they say that examination is not the true test of knowledge, because I can be very, very good and I go for exams and I fail that exams. Now ask yourself this question: why is it that you that is very good in that and at that time you fail that exam? A lot of things, a lot of factors are in place of it. So you cannot ascertain. But what the Montessori method is trying to expose to us is, on a day-to-day basis, you assess the child, both the ones you send home for homework, as they are coming back, you assess the child on a daily basis, and you don't have ways like you choose the area of assessing. It says whole child, holistically, everything about that child, the child's behavior, the child's attitude to learning, you must be assessed by you. If the child's attitude for learning is in order, you assess that child, and that means a pass mark. Not necessarily that you must give grades or give scores, but acknowledgement. The not Montessori method is okay, not only based on work that the child produces, receives grade or mark for their work. I've already talked about that. So let's go to this one. Montessori method is characterized by providing a prepared environment, tidy, pleasing in appearance, simple and real, while each element exists for a reason in order to help in the development of the child. Now, this still takes us back to a conducive environment. You must make your classroom environment very conducive. Very, very conducive. When I mean conducive, I mean very, very conducive. If there are certain things that must not be at your beck and call, but you can improvise them. You can provide them. You can go extra mile and do things. A Montessori classroom integrates children of mixed ages, groupings in periods of 3 years. Now, Montessori doesn't look at all of them must be the same age, 3 years, all of them, 4 years. It can accommodate beyond. But you group them after 3 years, there should be a change. After 3 years of them staying together, there should be a change. A change in the sense that this one should be pushed to the next level while other ones come to take over that stage. But it doesn't really look at that in your class, everybody must be the same age. I don't know if you understand that. Okay, let's move. Okay, now let's look at Montessori evaluation. Evaluation the Montessori way. Montessori schools and homes do not use grades or test scores. I talked about that. They don't depend on giving out grades. Oh, you write something, they use performance, acknowledgement as a way to evaluate children's progress. One good thing about Montessori is it do not subject children to this sort of assessment, which is often arbitrary or biased. How is it arbitrary or biased? You discover that your favorite is not doing well. A child you are doing home lesson for, and you know the parents are paying you for the home lesson, and the parents they are expecting because you are doing lesson for this child must always be excellent, and in that situation the child is not living up to expectation. In order for you to impress the parent, in order for you to at least allow it to remain at that level, you will want to put mark. That means you are biased. You want to put mark, maybe so that the parents will say, my child is still under excellent. How can we measure children's growth and development in a way that we will know how they are doing without using tests? Please, let's listen. How can we measure children's growth and their developmental process in a way that we will not have to apportion grades or marks to them? Another question is, how can educators know if a child is having an authentic Montessori experience? In your evaluation, how do you know if The best assessment of each child will include the following. This is the Montessori way of evaluation. The best assessment will include this. First, there should be some kind of chart, list, or schematic indication indicating what was done and complete by the child. Have a list or a cardboard chart that you put down every time you give homework or project and the child is able to do it. There is a difference between doing it and completing it. The child has started something. Most of the times we give holiday project, maybe during mid-trimester break. And some of them are coming up. They are not giving you what you really wanted. Maybe they've not done it the specified way. They have done it. Whether you like it or yes, they have done it. But have they completed it? They have not completed it. Because they've not done it according to your specification. Because you gave specification on how this project is to be carried out. So you look at those two things and then put it down. If that child has done it, making an attempt, you evaluate. Then completing it, you also evaluate. To make it even more useful, you can indicate that a child has been shown how to do the work on themselves and master it at all or not. Now, in your own assessment now, you can now boldly say that this child, even though he or she did not complete it or did not do it the specified way, this child has been taught, has been shown the way of doing it. So, from your own point of view, your performance now is having given the child all the necessary things that the child needed to be a master of that very subject matter. At the end of it, the child was able to only do it but not completing it. The second part of evaluation can include the child's own work, sample of written work, creative writing, drawing, art projects, and even photographs of the child's work can be included. During the era of COVID-19, when schools were closing up, my former school were operating online lessons using Zoom to do online lessons, which I was also part of it. That you connect with a child's the parent of the child at home, while the school have a Wi-Fi where you use your laptop or your phone, and then the child is seeing you from the classroom, and you are seeing the child from the home, and then you are dishing out instructions here, and the child is carrying out the instruction. Now you will ask yourself, how do you mark or that is the Montessori way. You only acknowledge the performance of that child without apportioning grades or marks. That is a typical example. You tell the child, stand up. When you are teaching like physical education, you tell a child to walk means to stand up from where you are and walk. You can see here that the child is not being aided by someone to walk, that the child is actually walking on its own. So your assessment is done. No, nothing is aiding the child. The child is doing it because you gave out instruction. In most cases, you can give out home project, and then in the situation whereby you can't stay here and view the house, you can ask the parents, while this child, I've seen a child while writing, the teacher say, no, I doubt, is it Solomon that wrote this thing? The parents say, yes, it is Solomon, my child, that put down this. He say, okay, ma, let me give you another written project. When the child is writing, use your phone and do what? Snap the child or video the child and send it to my WhatsApp number, WhatsApp, and then you have it. The child will sit down and be doing it the way he or she likes to do it, and the parent will snap or video and send it to the teacher. That is like an evidence. That is the Montessori way. Thirdly, we say the third part of assessment should include a written portion that summarizes the child's progress as observed by the teacher. Observation notes can be included to support the conclusion. That means in your listing, you can include your observations. What the child did well, what the child did not do well. But when you are apportioning marks or grade, do you consider all those things? You don't consider them. You only count 10 questions, the child scored 10/10. You give out 10/10, isn't it? Do you consider if the child got some spellings wrong? Do you consider if the child left out some key important definition that is needed? Most of us we pay deaf ears to those things. The fact that the child has given us what we want, so as these grades and marks, like we said earlier on, it can make so many educators to be biased. If you don't hold yourself, a lot of factors will come to play and you will be biased and say, like one of my lecturers will always say, then let my people go and we'll just give you the mark. Okay, so we move on. Characteristics of let's just finish this last part. It is helpful to briefly mention the general characteristics of a Montessori child and how this particular child is moving in each area. Since you are not using grades or marks to say this child scored 80 the other time, now the child is scoring 90, so there is progress, isn't it? Instead of using that, let's look at the characteristics, how you can judge that. Independence. How independent minded is that child or your learners? There are some that will always, you give them a test or exam, they will always want you to explain the question for them to get to know what they are to do. But there are some that you just give the question paper. Independently, the child is reading on his or her own and is following. So you take note of the independence of the child. This helps a Montessori child to do things on his or her own with the guidance of the teacher. That is why you are an educator. You must always be there to guide, but allow them to be independent on their own. Confidence. It helps the child to know what to do without being confused. The child will not mistaken this for this. When a child is giving you a definition of the subject matter, the child knows very well this definition is what it is. You build that confidence level, that this also will help children to always express themselves. From where I am coming from, they don't call anybody madam, auntie, uncle, because the system is saying you are not their uncle, you are not their father's brother, you are not their mother's brother, you are not your own. So they call you by your name. So a child will walk up to you and now tell you, Mrs. Indiana, please may I use the restroom? Not should I go? Will she allow me? Baby bowl. That if the school rule says don't eat in the class and a child knows that you as an educator, you are violating or pressing your phone. I have been in a class that they say no use of phone. And I was tempted to use the phone. I will not lie. I was tempted to use the phone. A child walked up to me and I said, Mr. Suko, you are pressing your phone when you are supposed to guide us and show us what we are supposed to do. I dropped the phone and I told the child, I'm sorry. Because he knew, and I was thinking, like we said, I was thinking that I have finished teaching I have given them class activity, let them do it, and I was now sitting back relaxed, not forgetting that I was supposed to go around and do what? And shake. And the child was confused. And now had to walk up to me and say, Mr. Supo, you are pressing your phone in a very polite manner. You are pressing your phone when you are not supposed to press your phone. You are supposed to guide us on what to do. Some of us, we don't know what to do. I dropped my phone and said, I'm sorry. I had to go around. Self-discipline. Being disciplined without instructions. You are disciplined. No too many instructions. Intrinsic motivation. This is the appealing to the child's inner need. These children or learners, they have inner needs. Aside the ones we've seen around them, they have some inner ones. How they would have loved you to explain that topic to them. How they would have loved you in their own little way for you to do it their own way. That is their inner appeal. So you have to take note of that. Ability to handle external authority. This means absolutely no interference. Like, you don't need to interfere. You've already set out your rules and just allow them to follow it accordingly. No interference. And that will also mean, even at home, no interference. It is bad for you to send home a home project and is the auntie or the uncle or the mother or the father that is helping the child to do it. Helping here, I mean, they are really helping. Now the question will be, I always ask my sister's children when they come home, the very little one that is in grade 1, will come. We want the other senior one to practically tell her everything and write everything down for her. I will call her, Sonia, were you not in the class when this lesson was taught? Because as far as I'm concerned, as an educator, what you teach them in class is what you now gave them to take home, so as to go and see if they learned what was taught here. So that means I will always tell her, Sonia, your sister was not there in the class with you when you were in your own class learning. Your sister was not there. So how come you expect her to sit down and then tell you everything and even write it out for you? That is wrong. Unless I am not at home before they can do that nonsense. But as long as I am in the house, they know. Because I will tell you, that means you did not pay attention to what was taught in class. That is interference I'm talking about. We teachers, we interfere. Parents interfere. Fellow learners interfere. But it should not be like that. Train your learners to the point that they have that ability to handle external authority, any external interference. Academic achievement, making progress academically. Our end point is to see how they can make good amount of progress in terms of their academic. This is not a hospital whereby you will say, I want to make sure that this child is healthy. I want to make sure that this child is growing fast, is eating well. The only healthiness should be academic health of the child. So we are looking at the academic achievement of every of our learners. And if we consider all these factors, then the end product will be that they are making good academic progress. Thank you. Now before I leave, I want to make some of these suggestions. as we are about to start, I made mention for some of us that we were not paying attention or we were not around. I made mention that as you leave this place, please go and get your class slogans ready. And you will tell me you are a subject teacher, you are not a classroom teacher. It doesn't make any difference. As a subject teacher, I am teaching maths, I'm teaching English. I can compose a song that rhymes with the maths I'm teaching. And each time I enter that class, I sing that song. They know me for that song. English wise, you can compose something. That is your slogan. Because you will not go and be expecting that they should use it and greet like the normal class room teachers. But you are teaching French. You can compose a song in French. First thing before you begin your class, you sing the song. That is a slogan and identity. And then also prepare your class exit card. Fine. We have sample. We know you can browse, do it. Don't ask how. Because the world is a global village that you can stay here and know what is happening in the White House. So browse how to be correct and have an exit card. If you can as well go to the market and buy the ready-made one, it's there in the bookshop. They use plastic, do it very well. Or you go meet an artist to create something for you. Be creative on your own budget. And then another thing is that you should always have an identity of yourself. When I first went to where I was, the first thing they asked me, like when we submit CV, the CV speaks everything about us, right? So have your own brochure or brochure, whichever way, that speaks about you. You say everything about you, and then you can boldly or comfortably paste it in your class. My learners, they all know the school I attended. Sometimes they will tell me, Mr. Supo, we want to bring that maritime spirit to come and influence us. This is not maritime, but we just laugh over it. Because they read through my profile. Your brochure carries your profile. Your classroom rules are also there. And like the setting there was, during open day, we give that to parents. So a parent will want to know how the profile of the teacher that is handling his or her child is. And just I still have them up to today. You state your rules, you state your do's and don'ts, and then you communicate in polite terms what your class is going to achieve. At the end of this school year, you hope that every of these learners that have been entrusted into your hand, that all of them, before they leave your class, this is what you hope to do what? To achieve. This is what you hope to impact into them for them to be useful citizens in the society. Thank you.